episode number 133 of the LSR Podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all of the gaming industry. With me, I have Dustin Gouker. And we have another Matt on the podcast. Matt Waters. Listen, I was the OG Matt in this company, and then it multiplied. There's 13 Matts, maybe more. Dustin, you can update. What's the official Matt count within the company?
We haven't lost it. I don't think we've lost a Matt, but yeah, there's a lot of Matts.
We just keep gaining Matts.
It's aggressive.
There's at least 13, 14 Matts. And at least I was the first. Matt Waters joins us here on the podcast. Matt, this is, listen, a big deal. We had Brad last week, so you've got a lot to live up to. None of us will ever live up to the handsome that is Brad. So like what we'll do is at least, we'll try to get the information as good as Brad can deliver it.
I'll do what I can.
Yeah, we'll do the.
Can you do a fake British accent?
Yes, no, I can't.
We'll all do the podcast.
As always, guys, everything we talk about here, you can find over on LSR, so be sure and head over there. And then, of course, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts as well. We will talk just the industry rundown, typical things that we do at the end with the quick bullet points. We'll talk about what's going on. Maybe at some point in Nevada, we'll give an Ohio update, but also in New York as well. But let's kick things off here, Matt, and get you going with a state that is near and dear to my heart, and I have already been inundated with a million questions as to what this all means. But Louisiana finally going live with their mobile product.
Yeah, I bet you have. And look, there's going to be questions around any launch, right? There are some things that we know right now for sure. We know 6 sports books will be live Friday morning. It's going to be Barstool, BetMGM, BetRivers, Caesars, DraftKings, and FanDuel. And as you guys know, you'll be able to access those apps in most of the state, 55 of the state's 64 parishes. And, time will tell just how big this launch can be. We've seen out of New York that a lot of these operators are willing to fight for market share. Money probably won't be as rich as New York because Louisiana's not New York. But Louisiana is still a very important state, and there's Joe Burrow to bet on this weekend. And you have to believe that is going to cause some excitement all throughout the state. So I'm really excited to see what these 6 operators can do.
Trust me, Dustin, I've already gotten the texts that that the bonus money bets are all being placed on the Bengals this weekend, and that's not even a joke. Like, I mean, you're Matt, you're 100% right. Like the Joe Burrow effect of launching this weekend is going to be really, really good for those sports books. There's no doubt about it. And Dustin, one of the things that I've speculated on, and I still believe this, is that I think Louisiana is going to have sneaky big numbers because of the Texas factor. And it being so close to Dallas, it being so close to Houston, even in Mississippi, until they figure out what they're going to do with mobile, the Mississippi people that aren't near a casino can drive across the border as well. So I actually think Louisiana, at least in the short term, we'll see how things play out. We know Texas is on the docket for a year from now and all the stuff like that. But at least in the short term, I think Louisiana could actually produce some pretty interesting numbers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going for Louisiana. From the launches we've had recently, Arizona was huge. We had a date that was set out in advance. We had 10 operators all at the same time. It was huge launch, right? There's a lot going in Arizona's favor. So we have many of the biggest operators going live at the same time. When we know this adds up to lots of people signing up, just tons of just getting inundated with advertising and promotions and things like that. So there's a lot going for Louisiana heading into this. As we've talked about, I'm sure on past podcasts, a little weird because not everywhere you live can you sign up and bet in Louisiana, but it's some of the smaller and more rural parishes there. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason that it shouldn't be big. It's if you're certainly, I think you're going to wait until football season rolls again. We've seen this in a lot of markets. Football season rolling around again, even though we're in the middle of football season, like no college football. Mm-hmm. The pure volume of games and the excitement around the start of the NFL season is a little different even than the championship weekend. It'll be big and Super Bowl will be big, but when it rolls around again, it'll be even bigger because we'll have college football on top of that when we know Louisiana is LSU crazy as we all know. I'm excited.
I asked them to kind of give me an update here over the next couple of days, over the next 48 hours of what the ads look like, what kind of the marketing message is, because if they really wanted to, which I imagine they thought of this in advance, and if they didn't, free for you right now. But I mean, on top of the Burrow factor, of course, Jamar Chase is on the Bengals. And then if you look over on the Chiefs side, they've got Tyrann Mathieu, they have Darrell Williams, they have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If you look into the Rams, Andrew Whitworth, there's all these LSU alums, all these like big name LSU alum guys that are beloved there in the state and whatever. I would be like, hey, you can bet on Andrew Whitworth this week, like you can bet on Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week. Like I would be throwing those names around left and right. I'm very interested to see how they go about it. And again, I'll know a little bit more next podcast as to how this first week went there in Louisiana. Dustin, we talked about, massive numbers in the first opening weekend there in New York. And then they really cranked it up a notch over the first 9-10 days.
Yeah, so right now we know that this is going to be the biggest sports betting market. I don't think that's a surprise, just based on the population of New York versus New Jersey, how sports crazy New York is, how many teams there are. So yeah, we're looking at, after the first 9 days, $600 million in handle. This is going to already surpass New Jersey once all the numbers are said and done. So yeah, that's the big part. What else is going on in New York? There's a lot. We're adding PointsBet. We just added PointsBet, so we're up to, is it 6 operators, Matt? I believe that are live now in the state.
Yeah, 6 now.
Is that right? 6. Yeah. So we're getting to the point where pretty much everyone is big. Is there some outliers? Bally says it's not going to launch until Q2 with its Bally Bets product. We still we're seeing and the big thing that for me is Caesars is number one, and we know they've spent aggressively. They finished number one after the first numbers came out with the most handle, most revenue. They were the most aggressive, big promo, much bigger than DraftKings and FanDuel. They are, as we all know, just inundating the airwaves with commercials. You can't miss JB Smoove, I don't think, these days, as playing the role of Caesar. But there's also been problems. There's been whenever the first time I mentioned Caesar's post launch, my mentions became, I can't withdraw. There's problems with it's drawn a little bit of the ire of Joe Adabo, the state senator who's behind legalizing sports betting. There's been just a couple hiccups there for Caesars, although it remains to be seen whether that those hiccups will pull them back at all. But it's interesting to see that all that you can spend all that money and then you get to number one. And I'd say this is really bad news for anybody who is not named, I guess, DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, or Caesars, because this is the cost of doing business right now. This is why you see people drawing back. We're going to get into this later, why WynnBET has drawn back what it's doing, because you have to have this will to give a ton of money to customers, to spend a lot on marketing. And, unless you're one of those four, and then you have Barstool, hanging around 3, 4, 5, depending on the state, not doing a ton of that external marketing and using its arm as media. It's interesting. It'll be interesting if Caesars can hold on to this, because they are often also rans, but this is them really, pushing into the top tier here and pushing DraftKings and FanDuel. And I'm rambling a little bit. DraftKings also, surprisingly, I'd say number 3 in the market, very early days. They have not started this poorly in any market, I don't think, in terms of how much handle and revenue they're generating. They're well behind both FanDuel and Caesars there.
So, Matt Waters, let's do some. This is what we like to do on the podcast here. We like to guess about things. So let's just guess here. When we get done and we get the first official report of the first full month of online remote registration, everything like that, sports betting in New York, what kind of number are we going to see here? What is your guess?
Man, it's hard not to imagine it being more than $1 billion, right? I mean, we're already at 600 million through 9 days. It's hard to imagine it won't be above $1 billion, maybe $1.2 billion. It's going to be a massive market. And of course, the talk is about, you call it handle. How much of it is really free bets? And of course, we'll see the market kind of calm down and right size a little bit. And like Dustin said, we really have to wait until we're into NFL season 2022 to really get a feel of how the full market will be. But yeah, it's got to be over $1 billion this first month.
And Dustin, we talked about this on the podcast either last week or the week before or something like that, where we were talking about just, to give credit where credit's due here from a Caesars side of things, like, yeah, lots of JB Smoove ads and the Caesars ads, things like that. But they're also running an ad campaign with just the Manning family where they're sitting there and they're doing nothing but talking about responsible gaming. There's no sell, there's no pitch, there's no nothing. It's just the three of them on camera talking about staying within your means and making sure that you're doing it the right way. So, listen, we got to give credit where credit's due, tip of the cap that they're getting out in front of that stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm encouraged generally about responsible gambling. Although there's been a little bit of a wave of news coverage of responsible gambling lately, just from what I'm seeing in the news around sports betting. But yeah, that's great. People seem to be split on the NFL commercials with Mariucci, but like, I think those are good. They're in the middle of NFL broadcasts. They got I kind of tune out sports books, but like that one, for whatever reason, hits me when I see it, right. It's kind of comes in. But yeah, and being creative and actually putting your money where your mouth is, that we care about responsible gambling. I care. I know all three of us care about making sure that people aren't betting without beyond their means. And it's really good to see, even though, there's free bets, there's lots of things to entice people to bet, but at least trying. And this is not hard. This is not easy, but we're doing a lot, I think, I like seeing efforts like that, and the NFL and NCPG, National Council on Problem Gambling, doing these things and being and trying to be proactive before we get to a point where things we go down a road we're not ready to go down.
Mr. Waters, let's talk about Ohio here. I mean, this is a state that has been, now that we're past New York, this is our new New York here on the podcast, where we continue to go back to Ohio and wonder what's going on there. So let's fill in our listeners as to what's going on in the great state of Ohio.
Yeah, so just to start it off, nobody get excited yet, right? Ohio sports betting isn't coming just yet. That's coming later this year, potentially much later this year, potentially January 1st of 2023. It has to start by then. We'll see how long the process takes. But for right now, the process is started. There's 2 different batches of rules out there that the public can contact the Casino Control Commission and give some public input on. One of the things that I thought was interesting was the Casino Control Commission decided to limit mobile sports betting partnerships to just a maximum of 4. And I have to imagine there's going to be somebody talking about that at Penn National, at least, because Penn National actually has 2 casinos and 2 racinos in the state. So that would be all 4 of its partnerships right there if that's how it went. So that might be a little bit of a point of contention. Other than that, honestly, for right now, it's just a lot of the beginning kind of boring industry jargon kind of stuff that has to get out of the way. We're still a little while from the exciting stuff from Ohio, but at least there's a bill passed, and at least we're getting the ball started at this point.
Dustin, I imagine, look, we've speculated and talked a lot about this from a New York standpoint when it comes to, how much of the New York going live is going to pull from New Jersey and stuff like that. But one of the things we haven't really done is just talk about these other states, right? About what it might do. And Ohio going live, with it being bordered by, Pennsylvania, with it being bordered by, really close to Pennsylvania, really close to Indiana, all these various states like that, Michigan, if you wanted to make that drive as well. So they're very close to a whole bunch of states that are legalized. I wonder if people will start to, if we get a study or some sort of estimates here over the next year, 18 months or something, as to, once all these things go live, as to how much money came back into the state from being fled to some of these bordering states.
Yeah, I mean, it's been hard to capture how much drive-in traffic there is anywhere. And there's big cities around Ohio where you could go or just go across the border, right, and say, hey, I want to bet. That's been hard to capture, I think, but it certainly goes on everywhere. And yeah, with Ohio, it's exacerbated by not every state, but a lot of states, like you said, have this. But it's it also just underlies the point, like, when you're surrounded by sports betting, like, what are you doing? This is almost, I mean, Matt, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Like, this is what happened with casinos, right? Atlantic City started, and then you started seeing it expand across the Northeast, and it's like, why are we not regulating it and doing it at that point? That's the the part where it just like it doesn't make any sense anymore. We're banning it here. Everybody else has it. People are gonna do it. They're doing, and again, they're doing it on the black market. We should just be doing this. So it's just hard to say you're really effectively banning anything when this exists right across your borders all the time. And I do see a lot of parallels with that, with the expansion of just casino gaming in the U.S.
Yeah, Matt, it's like we know that some of the money that was going into Jersey is going to come back into New York. We understand how that's an easy little commute. That hop on the train. We've talked to people who've done that and just, ride the train over, make their bet, turn around, ride the train back. But I imagine some of these states, specifically like in Ohio, that really is just surrounded by all these legalized states, and some of these other ones as they begin to kind of start to legalize here, I imagine we're going to figure out, whether it's through billing addresses that we get or whatever it might be, kind of figuring out, oh, by the way, like us doing this really did bring X amount of money back into the state that was, in fact, leaving the state.
Oh, sure. And we already started to see it last year. It was GeoComply that brought one of their fantastic presentations. It's not even a presentation, it's just a visual representation of all of the geolocation transactions that took place within 10 miles of the Ohio border in all of those legal states. And it was just lit up like a Christmas tree. And it was around the first weekend of March Madness. And so obviously these dollars are leaving the state. Of course, some people are betting with the illegal offshore books as well. But a lot of money is leaving the state to go to other legal states. And so Ohio really has a chance to finally bring that money back in.
So, Dustin, this is part of the pod I always love whenever we can sit and rail on the state that I live in here in Nevada. So, you get good things. You get at least a new shiny toy there in Oregon. I don't get anything, at least yet.
Yeah, there's a couple things here. We just got Nevada numbers out. More than $1 billion handle for a third straight month. So, again, Nevada's still growing its sports betting market with online sports betting. I assume you must be doing really well on betting basketball over there, because hold was just was very low on the NBA, which is why revenue, despite that $1 billion in handle, revenue was only $16 million on sports betting. So hold on basketball was under 1%. So you must be, I don't know, you must be killing
the NBA has been interesting so far this year for sure. There's all the, whether it be the COVID stuff that the big wave of COVID that happened about a month ago, whether it be just the massive injuries to some of these big stars, it has certainly been an interesting NBA season. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that NBA, there's some the information is king right now. You get some big bets down, and we saw that. That's probably some of why you see hold down for basketball. But anyway, Nevada growing. The other part, we have a really good story, and yes, this is the topic. I feel like we talk about it every week because it's just it's amazing that Nevada is we're still sitting in the dark ages. I retweeted Brad Allen's story about will Nevada ever get rid of in-person registration, and people are. And I'm going to be a little mad. People in my mentions are like, it's because the population's bigger in New Jersey than Nevada. I'm like, okay, so by that rationale, Nevada should be a third of the size of New Jersey because it's a third of the population. Nonsense. Right now, if you opened up Nevada to remote registration, it would destroy New Jersey in terms of how much betting is occurring there. The obvious part is gambling tourism, that people come in and are in casinos and like. Sure. Yeah. Maybe you go to the sports book. You like to go get an app if you're in town for a few days is just nonsense because you have to go stand in line and sign papers, and like it's not as easy as plunking down either a sports book bet or going to a table. And like, so I'm a little surly this morning about this discussion because Nevada is not smaller because of population. Yeah. Tens of millions of people come to Las Vegas every year to gamble. They would gamble much more if you had, marketing that says, "Hey, sign up on your sportsbook app on your phone. You don't have to come to the stupid sportsbook to do it.
Here's a free $100. Here's a free $100. Like whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's money. Here's like you don't get that stuff either. Like it's nonsense to me. Not to mention that the apps there below that you have nowhere near the betting markets or live markets or any of that stuff. The product is abysmal. So this is not population. You're not serving the people who want to gamble on sports in Nevada as best you can. Now we're still seeing it grow because of the adoption of it and people getting more comfortable with it. But you turn on a spigot. We can go to Illinois and see, they didn't have it. They turned it back on. They turned it off. And we're going to see it again in March when it goes back on in theory. where you can bet, you can remotely sign up, that this is going to be another uplift. So no, Nevada shouldn't be smaller than New Jersey. No, maybe someday, yes. Like New Jersey keeps growing, absolutely. But right now, if you could sign up anybody from wherever you wanted to on their phones, you would have a much bigger sports betting market. Now, does that move the needle in terms of revenue and overall? No, because the locals casinos there, as we've explained here, don't really want it. They're not going to build apps to compete with everyone else. So anyway, really good read from Brad Allen to this topic that is near and dear to your heart over at LSR. Definitely would suggest reading that. And it's not hopeless. Again, like this is the same thing with online game everywhere. Like, now we have BetMGM, Caesars, and Wynn. Maybe not. Again, we're going to talk about Wynn again here in a second. But like we have these big casino operators in Penn National that are into online gambling. They're lobbying for this, and I'd say it's borderline embarrassing for them to have worse apps, a worse experience, not be able to sign people up. That Nevada is still in the Stone Ages, absolutely. And yeah, I can't emphasize this enough. Nevada would 100% be the largest sports betting in the state, other than probably New York, immediately if you took this restriction away of making people sign up.
And the thing is, Matt, is not on top of the stuff that Dustin said just about the in-person registration and stuff, and how the people it's not worth people's time. But so, yeah, there is a lot of over-the-counter business from tourism, but that's it. Like, once they plunk down that bet, they walk away and go to the pool or go to the Twitter, and that's it, right? Like, so there's not an opportunity to get that person to make another bet, or even if they wanted to, they're like, I don't want to walk back over there or wait in line or whatever. And then you have zero chance of getting any in-game action out of these people as well, because it's not even an option. And so that's why this thinking, like Dustin's saying, that like it can really grow. No, it can grow. It would grow, and it would grow pretty massively, pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about all the times when you've been in a book yourself and how long some of those lines are on an NFL Sunday, a college football Saturday. The average guy might just not want to wait in that line. And who knows, maybe he had a couple grand to put down on something. Maybe if he had the app in his hand, maybe he'd be putting down a couple grand every quarter. You just don't know. It's really silly. Honestly, right? I mean, you're talking about Nevada. You're talking about the gaming capital of the U.S. And to have people have to jump through hoops to bet on sports is kind of ridiculous in 2022 at this point.
There is. I love using this comp because there is some amount of laziness with this too. Like, you could go get your app, but this is. I mean, it's actually an argument again for remote registration. Is that yes, you can go get it, and it would be easier for you moving forward. But people are freaking lazy, right?
Because you still got to wait in the lines, and you still, there's still all of that, right?
But there's a Starbucks a couple miles down the street. I have had the Starbucks mobile app for a million years because I just want my coffee and I want to get out of there. I don't want to wait in a freaking line. But it's the same thing though. People always go to Starbucks, right? You get coffee at Starbucks no matter where you are. I mean, maybe you go to the local shop if you had one, whatever. But I do that. I get my mobile order before I get there. I go in, I order my coffee, and I leave in 30 seconds. There's this line of people, because there's only one really close to me, of 10, 15 cars every time I go to the Starbucks. Those people know there's a Starbucks app. Starbucks is advertising it when they get into the drive-through line. Like, so these people are. So, but this is why it's like, yes, you can sign up for your online apps, but people are lazy. They don't want to. They don't want to go sign a paper and go do something. They want to sit on their asses in a car and get coffee served to them rather than make it more convenient for them. Like, once you do it, you say, oh, this is so much better. But that impetus. That's why we love Amazon too, right? We love Amazon because I don't have to go to the store and buy something. It just shows up on my doorstep, and now I have the thing that I want. Yeah. Right. So there's some of that in the background.
And my final little bit of this as well, and this is something that, again, if you're in the bubble, you already know this, but if you're outside, you might make you think about it as well. It is also much more. There's a far less barrier to entry for someone to be able to bet over an app, and a level of comfortability for someone to bet over an app than the process of going to the counter and not really knowing like how to place a bet, and not really knowing like what to say, and the jargon and the different things like that. And I've seen a ton of different people, and I do a show, I work out of the South Point, 5 days a week. They put in a whole bunch of kiosks. you can tell the difference in the clientele that are putting in their bet at the kiosk than the person that's walking up to the counter and doing it, because they want to just be able to just push the button and not have someone waiting behind them and feel like they're holding a lineup, or they don't know what to say, or all that. So, I mean, there's also that as well, just the comfortability level that you can place the bet on your own time. No one's hassling you. No one's behind you. You can't say anything wrong. You can't do anything wrong because it's all things right there in front of you. So that's just another aspect about all of this. All right, Matt Waters, take us through just kind of some industry happenings here. We got some news from Wynn, we got some news from Bally's, different things like that.
So we have two sports betting brands that are potentially up for sale. The one is going to stay in-house, though, it seems. So Standard General, the hedge fund that owns 20% of Bally's, wants to buy Bally's and take it private. Soo Kim is the founder of Standard General. He's also the chairman of Bally's, so there's a connection there. And honestly, it makes sense at this point. It's just an opportunistic move. The stock is down. It's just a good time to buy for Bally's. So I certainly appreciate what Soo Kim's doing. It seems to make sense. The one that's more interesting is that Wynn Resorts just completely wants out of WynnBET and sports betting at this point, to the point where the New York Post says they want to sell the whole division for $500 million. That's pretty cheap for somebody looking to get into sports betting, especially considering that New York license as well. Fanatics seems like it has to be a front-running favorite since they wanted to get into New York. Didn't even qualify with their bid for Penn National to be considered for one of those licenses. But this would be an easy way to get in now. And, WynnBET is no slouch when it comes to market access either. They have market access to like 14 states. So it could be an opportunity for somebody else who's just looking to get the ball rolling. There's, we're 3+ years into U.S. sports betting, but there are still plenty of companies looking to break in and make their impact. So the WynnBET story is going to be interesting to see. My money would be on a Fanatics deal, but we'll just have to see. And then outside of that, I mean, it's January, so all the legislatures are busy. We have activity in Missouri, Kansas, Virginia. Virginia wants to take away they want to end sports betting promos being deducted from taxable revenue, which we've seen has had a big impact. There's a bill to legalize betting in Oklahoma. There's once again another bill to end the silly Mississippi Mobile, where you have to be on site to bet with the apps. So it's a really busy time. One other thing worth mentioning is Arkansas has retail sports betting. They could have been live with sports books before the Super Bowl started, had the Arkansas Legislative Council approved a rule change yesterday. That was pulled at the last minute. And they say it's because they changed a word that actually didn't change the definition at all. Really, we know there's a lot going on behind the scenes there. The national sports betting companies do not want to share 51% of their revenue with the Arkansas casinos, and that is codified in that rule. The casinos have to take a majority of the revenue there. A couple books even wanted more skins, so they're going to be talking about that more, at least for another month or two. But yeah, it's a shame for anybody in Arkansas that they were so close to online legal sports betting all throughout that state, and now they're just going to have to wait.
Also, are we going to be able to go to Hawaii and sit on the beach and bet in Hawaii?
Maybe. That depends on if anybody wants to pay the 55% tax that bill is asking for. I don't know what the interest is going to look like there. We'll have to see. But yeah, Hawaii too.
Yeah,
and in addition to the fact that Hawaii has never had any real sort of
this would legalize the first form of gambling. They don't have a lottery. They have nothing over there. So they're looking for something to gamble on.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because the Hawaii thing, I've even dealt with some of that stuff in my prior life because they've never held they never held UFC events over there because of the tax rates and how high it is and expensive it is to run shows and everything over there. So it's one of those deals where, if they want to kind of get in on some of this other stuff, people holding big events there, gamble, whatever it might be, they might have to start at least coming off of this position on some of these tax rates that they have in mind, because it's certainly keeping a lot of different things out of there. But Dustin, if we can get if we can get a gambling entity for 500 million, I mean, look, I'm good for 5K. You want to chip in, and then we can just go find like the rest of the people here. Like you and I will be 50%. We just find the other people to be the other 50% if they'll put in the 500 million.
I mean, I'd buy WinBet for 500 million if I had the pocket change.
I mean,
I'd say that's a good deal.
Let's do it, and we'll run it. They can just put up the money. So there it is. We'll be 50%. We'll split it 25%, and they can have 50% if they'll put up the 500 million. That offer's on the table for anybody out there. So just hit us up. My DMs are open. Dustin, let's finish things up here. We got we got some interesting nuggets here on the live betting market, specifically in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm previewing a story that is coming to LSR about Genius Sports, which works with sportsbooks. Investor Call said U.S. sportsbooks are struggling to model NFL live betting to the point that U.S. books have only been holding 4% on NFL bets, and this has always been like, oh, this is where the future is. This is where we make our money, and it's not been the case so far. Genius Sports says that it's a product offer that live betting in other sports is very well tested. It is not tested well, and this is probably a call for you, Matt, to get to a state where where you can get down on more live betting markets, because they're not efficient apparently yet, and that you can get in and maybe not beating the books, but you can find inefficiencies if you're just sitting there on your phone looking at live NFL markets, because the books are not really beating the bettors very well on this point. So it's interesting data to see. Again, story coming from Brad Allen again on this and what Genius Sports was saying about in play. It's really interesting stuff.
As always, that story and everything we talk about here on the podcast, you can find over at LegalSportsReport.com. So head over there, take in all the good words that everybody is doing over there. If you want to keep up with the happenings as soon as they happen, you should follow Dustin on Twitter at Dustin Gouker. You should follow Matt Waters on Twitter at by Matthew Waters on the Twitter machine. And if you hate yourself, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2.
My Twitter account is mostly just me, how much I'm destroying DraftKings.
There you
Oregon.
go. Yeah,
so
I know.
Want to follow along with that?
Well, then you can just buy WinBet on your own here in just a little while. So it'll be fun.
I'm up 100% since I started
there
DraftKings. Just saying, huge win rate. I'm starting to tout. I'm going to give my pick. I'm going to start selling picks real soon.
There it is. And like I said, you can just buy it on your own. You won't even need that investor. That's fine. I'm still in for 25%. With my $5,000. So just don't forget about the little guys after you buy it all. For Dustin, for Matt, I'm Matt. Talk to you guys next week.